Hi guys, welcome to this look at X-Plane 10. Claims to be ultra realistic flight simulation according to the xplane.com website. So I'm going to take a look and see how realistic it really is. Now I should say that I have added some what you might call mods, I suppose, in terms of scenery packages and also some plugins which do things like ground services, refueling, all that sort of stuff. So you can add a lot to it to make it even more realistic. What I think they're referring to when they say it's ultra realistic is really the physics of the aircraft and how they fly. So X-Plane is a flight simulator, it's all about flying planes. So to an extent, I guess maybe ultra realism of the scenery is a secondary thought maybe, but certainly the planes to me seem to fly pretty much as they would in real life. That said, I'm not a pilot, so if there's any pilots out there who want to tell us, maybe they can tell us. Let's just have a look at some of the options. I'm going to open a different aircraft. I'm actually going to go, no, actually we'll stick with the Piper Seminole. That's fine. It's quite a nice little aircraft. We'll have a look at it from the outside and you can see what it looks like. Let me just put myself... This is the list of airports. There are about 30,000 airports in X-Plane, so that's pretty good. And you can be at various points on the airfield. I'm going to go to Terminal 1 at Cambridge. I'm starting at Cambridge and just going down as far as Stansted, which is a very short flight. May not be terribly realistic that a small plane like this would be landing at Stansted, but what the hell, we'll do it. So it'll give us a little look around, you know, the scenery and so on, and we can see what's what from there. So there's a lot of views in X-Plane. I'm going to go to circle view just so you can have a look at the outside of the plane. So there we are, sitting on the tarmac at Cambridge, cold and dark, no power to the plane at all at the moment. So the first thing we need to do is get the plane started up. Some planes have 3D cockpits, some don't. If you do that and you just get a view of the outside, then it hasn't got a 3D cockpit. So this one in fact hasn't. So what I'll do is go to forwards with panel, and that is where you will fly from and see all your instruments. So as far as I'm aware, this is pretty true to life. As I say, I'm not a pilot, but from what I can see online about this plane, this seems to be pretty much how it should look. So just put the mixture to rich and give it a little bit of throttle to start up. There we go, we can see the left propeller has caught, that's started. Start the right one. There we go, so they should both be started now. So what we'll do is take another quick look outside. And there we go. So also in X-Plane there are a number of rendering options you can set depending on the power of your graphics card. This is where you can set how much traffic you get on the roads, how many trees there are, how many objects on the ground, the number of roads and the number of cars. I've got it set to Los Angeles downtown, which is about as high as it goes. You can go for none, in which case obviously you wouldn't see any. Siberia winter, I wouldn't imagine you'd see too many, but the other options you get quite a few. But Los Angeles downtown is what I've got it set on at the moment. But there's lots of different options in there you can play about with. You can have real weather in X-Plane. It will download real weather from the internet. I haven't got it on that at the moment. I've just got it on nice and clear so that we get a chance to have a look at the scenery and don't have clouds getting in the way. So that's us at Cambridge. So we should be just about ready to go. So let's go back inside the plane. And what I'm going to do, I am using, by the way, a Cytec ProFlight yoke and the radio panel and multi-panel. There are a number of things you can buy, not just Cytec but several other manufacturers as well, but Cytec do make very good equipment. They have a very good reputation in the flight sim market, and those are the ones I went for. So
So that's what I'm using. You can, when you first download X-Plane, there is a demo version, small area of the United States you can fly, and you can fly initially with a mouse. Flying with a mouse is quite hard work, but to be honest, once you get off the ground, you're going to use the autopilot to do 90% of things. So, yeah, it's worth a try to try it out, but really a joystick or a yoke like I've got is really the way to go if you're going to get into it seriously. Okay, so let's take the brakes off and taxi out to the runway. You'll see traffic going by in the background. I have downloaded a scenery package which improves on the base X-Plane scenery. There are always new things coming out that you can add to the game. One weakness, for example, if you're at Gatwick and you're perhaps flying a heavy jet like a 787 or something, and you request taxi instructions once you've got your clearance and all that sort of thing, the line you're supposed to follow on the ground, there's a yellow line appears, not this yellow line, that's painted on the ground, but there's a different yellow line with arrows telling you where to go straight through buildings and other aircraft on the ground. And apparently what happened was they laid down the taxiways before they then laid down all the buildings and everything. So some of the taxiways actually go straight through buildings and such like, so that isn't totally realistic, that bit. But it's something they know about and they're working on. Also, X-Plane does have its own ATC built in, which they admit themselves is not great. It's constantly being worked on to improve it. But you can fly on something like VATSIM where you get real people doing air traffic control, and then, you know, your taxiway, you follow the real taxiways they tell you to go down, and the air traffic control is a great deal more realistic. So there's lots of options as to how you can improve things anyway. But I don't think any flight simulator is perfect, but there are certain things in X-Plane which are really good. I believe to be the physics of how the airplanes fly, although as I said I'm not a pilot. Let's put the throttles up to full and get this thing off the ground. Once we're in the air, we'll have a little look around at some of the scenery and then shoot down to Stansted and land there. So as I said, very short flight. Should be okay to get off the ground now. I'm not going to climb too far because I want to go out and see the ground scenery quite clearly. So this is our altitude here. We'll stop at 600, something like that. Should give you a reasonable view of the ground scenery, I hope. Okay, so that will do, so we'll go there. So the autopilot's on, should be holding the heading to here, so you adjust the heading with this, turn that, they call it a bug I think, turn that around and it will fly wherever that is. So we're heading off across Cambridge, and what I'd like to do is fly out of Cambridge a little way and then turn completely around and come back so that you can see something in particular on the ground. In fact, you can see it there, but it's a bit late. Let me turn around back into Cambridge in a second and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we're flying out of Cambridge now. Have a look outside at our aircraft. Okay, so that's us. Let's have a look back inside. Let's just put the landing gear up. Go back outside quickly. And you can see the wheels fold up into the aircraft exactly as you'd expect them to. So that seems pretty realistic to me as well. So we'll go back in. Okay, so I'm going to make that turn, about 180 degree turn. We're currently flying due west, so we'll turn and fly due east in a second. And then hopefully I'll be able to show you one thing that I do like in the scenery a great deal. Shouldn't take us too long to make this turn, hopefully. If there's any pilots out there who can tell us if they think this does look like it's pretty realistic physics, then that would be great, because as I say, I'm not a pilot. I can only judge by what I think it would feel like, and it does seem to be pretty good to me. So let's just get up you up so we can see a bit. If you rotate your mouse wheel while pointing at the scenery here, you can zoom in, and as we zoom in, complete this turn. A bit of luck, I'll find what I'm looking for. Not yet, give it a second or two. Let's have a look. Okay, so this, here we go. Now if we look here, with a bit of luck, you can see there a couple of traffic lights. You keep your eyes on those traffic lights that are on green. See, that one's just gone amber and now red. So the traffic lights do actually change. I'm not sure entirely how much traffic actually obeys them. I'm not sure if traffic stops at a red traffic light. I haven't actually seen that. There's not a vast amount of traffic around at the moment. There's a lorry there going down a road. You can see a few cars on that road there. Once you get out into the country, you'll see a lot less. There's a lorry going by there. You will see trains as well, both freight trains and passenger trains. So that's pretty good, I would say. Let's just have a look at our map. So this is where we're flying. We're coming out here. That will not be too bad for getting to Stansted. Stansted is here. So I think what I'll do is sort of head round there and come into land with a bit of luck. So let's go to a heading of about 130, something like that. It should hopefully do it for us. So we're going to use the ILS at Stansted for our landing, and the ILS frequency is shown on the map. You can see it there, 110.5. And I've got my radio panel already set to that on the nav1 frequency. And our source is set to nav1, so that's all fine. So I'm going to back off the throttle a bit, because I don't want to be going too fast. I want to have plenty of time for it to make the turns and get us nicely lined up on the runway. There's what look like some wind turbines there that we're flying straight towards. So I'm going to go a little bit further to the right to avoid them, make sure we're not going to be flipping them or something. I'm flying really low, only about 600 feet. Let's just make sure we move this way a bit. Another view that I think is quite good is the still spot. So if we go still spot, and here we come, and there we go. So I think that's a pretty cool view actually. I like that. That's really nice. But much more useful to have a good look at your plane is the circle view, and if you hold down the right mouse button and move the mouse, you can scroll all around. Don't worry about it bouncing up and down. That's because I'm not holding the mouse terribly still. But I've got buttons on the yoke to do this for me, which is much better. Okay, what we'll also do, because we're not going to be going too far and we are landing fairly soon, I'll put the undercarriage back down and we should see there's the wheels coming back down. So that's pretty cool. I'm told all these wind turbines are in the right place. I was born in Cambridge, but I don't remember whereabouts they are exactly. But could well be right. I know the M11 and the A14, the major roads, look like they're pretty much in the right place from what I can see of things. A14 certainly seems to go to Ipswich and then Felixstowe, which is what I expect. So let's just see where we're headed. Yeah, that looks good. We'll be coming down here and coming into Stansted, so that's looking pretty good. One other thing I do have, which is quite useful on a tablet, I've got an Android app, which was downloaded free from the App Store, which is called Moving Map. I just search for X-Plane and Moving Map comes up. And with that, you can actually have a moving map showing your plane moving along. That's pretty good. I mean, that adds a bit more. It's almost something you quite like them to do, so you can have it on the screen, but I haven't seen anything that does that as yet, and I found this movement map online, so I've got a tablet computer. Then you just set up a data connection. I think it's settings, yeah, data input output. It tells you how to do it. It's pretty easy. Also in there is the joystick and equipment options, where I've set up my yoke for the buttons to do the things that I want them to do. I mentioned plugins earlier. We'll just have a look. I've got a number of plugins in there. You do have to be a bit careful on graphics, depending on what graphics card you've got. I've got an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 770, which is quite a high-end graphics card with a fair amount of video RAM, but I still can't put the settings up to absolute maximum in X-Plane. It will just crash because basically the system runs out of video RAM. So I suppose the option is to get an even better card or another one and link them together, or add more video RAM to the existing card if that's possible. Not something I've looked at doing yet. I need to dial down some of the settings and it's not too bad. So that's fine. Environment weather is where you can set real weather or what you want it to be. You can also set the date and time in there. This is obviously a daytime flight. And in the aircraft menu you can set how many other aircraft, AI aircraft there are flying around. We've got that turned off at the moment just to make life easier for us. Also the weight and fuel of your aircraft, or open a different aircraft if you want a different one. So we're heading from Cambridgeshire down into Essex now. So what we will need to do is back off the throttles a bit further. If I hit the lock and GS buttons, the LOC button lock, that is for localizer, so that will line up with the runway for us, and GS is the glide slope, so that will take us down to the runway, so we don't actually have to do that much really. We will, as we lose speed, need to put some flaps on. Aeroplanes tend to fall out of the sky if they're going too slow and you don't have the flaps there. So I'm going to set full flaps and reduce the throttles a bit. The aim being we should be landing at about 60 miles an hour, I believe. We don't want to go down too far at the moment because otherwise it will take us a fair while to get there, and I don't want the video to be too long for you guys. But I did want you to get a fairly reasonable idea of what X-Plane actually looks like if you added a few bits of scenery and so on. We're out in the country now, as you can see, so you're going to see a lot less traffic on the roads unless we come across a pretty major road. There's a few cars there on that one. There is something quite strange about the traffic in X-Plane on dual carriageways and motorways, what the Americans call freeways. They do seem to drive on the left, but on minor roads, like single carriageway roads, they all seem to drive on the right. I'm not quite sure why that is. I mean, I know the UK are a bit strange, being one of the few countries in the world that actually drive on the left anymore, but it seems a bit strange that on some roads they're driving on the left and on other roads they're driving on the right. I think we're going to need a bit more power here because we're using high. There we go, right, get this back up a bit. So apologies for that. Good. Going at that right, hopefully. Just a little. Try and keep it around 80, that will be fine. So let's see where we are on the map now. And yeah, we should be turning pretty soon. So assuming that the localizer picks up the frequency for the runway, we should then just automatically line up with it. What I'm going to do for the moment, just move our heading round to heading due south, and then we're virtually flying the runway. We should pick up the localizer frequency without too many problems, I hope. So in general, I think it's pretty realistic. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've not played FSX or P3D or Prepared, as I believe it's pronounced. I have seen videos of them, But to be honest, I think there are good things and bad things in all flight simulators. To get it perfect, I think it would be pretty hard work, to be honest. I don't think anything's ever going to be perfect. There are always little things in games which are not, quite 100%. You look at Euro Truck Simulator and look at the way the AI behaves, cars and the way they brake and change lane and such like. Some of that's not terribly realistic. So I think in all games there are things that can be improved, and I suppose all these things are a work in progress, really. X-Plane is now up to version 10.4, I believe. There are always patches coming out, always new versions coming out, which are free. You don't need to pay to upgrade them. I think I originally got X-Plane 9 and then went to X-Plane 10 from there. It does have world scenery, so this scenery is all over the world. So you don't have to buy anything else necessarily unless you want to improve how the scenery looks. But you can pretty much fly anywhere in the world straight away with a vanilla game. And I don't think it's particularly expensive for a flight simulator either. There are a lot of payware add-ons you can buy. There's a particularly good scenery package called Urban Max, which is about $7, which is pretty cheap, I think you'll agree. It gives a lot more buildings for the cities and so on. It maxes out the number of buildings, really. But if you fly at night, because of all the lights that are going to be on the ground, it uses a lot of memory and tends to crash sometimes. So it's worth bearing in mind that sometimes if you go for certain things in the scenery, you have to dial other things down. But like maybe less cars on the road or something, I don't know. But you can fiddle around with the settings and find whatever works for you in your particular setup. Let's see how we're doing. Okay, so we're flying down here. We should be locking to that any second and making a right turn. That should line us up to the runway with a bit of luck. So let's just see if that works. It seems to be lining up okay. So I don't think we're a million miles. Here we go. There's the right turn. And again, you can see some traffic on the roads down here. So we should be turning directly to the runway at standstill now. I'm just going to reduce the throttle just a little bit more. With a bit of luck, we'll pretty soon see standstill in the distance. Can't actually see it at the moment, but I think we're still a little way away yet. But we should fairly soon be lining up with the runway and hopefully hit the glide slope, and then we'll start losing climb down to the runway. That's going to be pretty close to the runway because we are only flying at about 600 feet, so it's not like we're going to be intercepting the glide slope at 2,000 or something. Looks like we're following this road down here. Let's see if there's a bit of traffic on the road. Yeah, there's a lorry there. I'll zoom right in. I was hoping we might see a train as we're coming down here so I can show you the trains as well, but I haven't actually seen the train on the slides yet. I don't know if we'll see one as we get closer to Stansted. I'm trying to think of the railway station. All the end railway station isn't far from there. That's a pretty major station on the rail into London. So it's Bishopstorf as well, I think, not too far from there. So there are a few railway stations in the area, so it's possible we might pick up a train as we go down here. I can't see the railway lines at the moment. Maybe we'll see one, maybe we won't. In future videos I'm looking at perhaps doing a tour around the UK, perhaps around the UK coastline might be nice. So probably start off in Cambridge, fly out over Ipswich if you know the UK, out to the east coast around Felixstowe, and then up the coast perhaps to Humberside on the first leg and land there, and then from Humberside on the next one perhaps go up as far as Scotland, land at maybe Glasgow or something like that, and then From there, go out to the west coast and head back down the west coast and around Devon, Cornwall, all that sort of thing, back round towards Cambridge again. So if you want to leave a comment as to whether you'd like to see that or what you would like to see, I'm more than happy to consider anything really. Anything you do have to bear in mind, I suppose, if you're going to fly from, say, the UK to America, which is perhaps in reality a 9-hour flight, well, it's going to take 9 hours in X-plane because it is realistic in terms of time. So if that were the case, flying across the Atlantic would be pretty boring most of the way to watch on the video, I would have thought. So we could certainly do a takeoff from, say, Gatwick or Heathrow, and then cut the video and go to the point of approaching the US. Perhaps do that. There's some more traffic on the roads there. You can see a few lorries there. This might be the A14, because I can imagine there will be quite a few lorries on the A14 going down to the docks at Felixstowe, so that's every possibility it could be that. Okay, so let's just look how close to the airport we are. Well, according to that, we're right on top of it. I can't see. Oh, no, I still can't see it. The local map seems to suggest that we're right on top of Stansted Airport, but I can't actually see a runway. Keep going and see if maybe it's a little bit further in the distance. Ah, here we go, that looks like it's right here. I'm not sure if the buildings at Stansted are modelled, so it might look a bit more than buildings. Which is one criticism I would have of X-plane really, is that surely they could just put standard buildings at every airport. I can see the lights now, so that's the Varsity lights. Once we hit the glide slope, we should see 2 reds and 2 whites. At the moment we're all red, which means we're a bit low. Well, we know that because we're only flying at 600. But now we certainly can see the runway in front of us. So we'll check our undercarriage is down. Yep. Okay, so let's have a look from the outside as we land. So again, you can see the scenery in the background. You can see some cars on the roads, hopefully in the background. Again, I can't see railway lines unfortunately, but perhaps in another flight we'll be able to pick up a railway line, perhaps follow a train for a while or something. But this should be taking us right down to the runway with a bit of luck. We certainly seem to be getting lower from what I can see. Again. Well, we're starting to lose. Oh yes, look, there's the runway. We're starting to lose a little bit of height, so this looks pretty perfect. Autopilot's are wonderful things. You don't have to do too much hard work really. It gives you plenty of time to look around at the scenery and so on, which in some ways is one of the best things about flight simulators, is the scenery and everything else, as well as obviously the aeroplanes. I mean, the main point I suppose is to fly the aeroplanes, and if they're saying that the physics of the aeroplanes and the realism of the aeroplanes is top notch, then I suppose that's what you want from a flight simulator really, and the scenery is possibly a secondary consideration. Don't know if you guys would agree with that, but I think it's nice to get you know, scenery as realistic as possible as well. I'm just going to reduce the thrust now because we should be ready to touch down. Any second. Runway should come into sight in a sec. There it is. Not the greatest landing in the world, but we're down. I guess that's what counts. So we are down. Suppose the throttle's all the way down. I've applied the brakes. So now we can give it a little bit of throttle, taxi along, and we'll see if there are any buildings at Stansted. I really can't remember. Let's go this way and have a look. Just looking for an exit from the runway, one over here I think. And in reality obviously we'll stop in the middle of the runway, but we'll just head over here. I mean, the runway lights, runway signs, positions of taxiways as far as I'm aware seem to be pretty accurate. They do look very effective at night as well, I have to say. Can't see any buildings, so as I suspected, Stansted is one of the airports that doesn't have any buildings, and I think this is one of the biggest drawbacks. But I believe, same as with Flight Simulator, that a lot of the airports didn't have buildings as standard, and you could download payware scenery for it, possibly some freeware, I don't know, but I just think they could just put standard buildings at basically every airfield. I don't see why that would be impossible, but let's just head this way up the taxiway and just make sure that I'm not being unfair and going to come across a load of gates in a second, but it doesn't really look like it, does it? It's pretty devoid of anything, to be honest. And as I say, I think they could put some sort of standard buildings positioned, you know, maybe not exactly where they are in reality, but at least to get some buildings at every airport would be nice, I think. Obviously some of the smaller airports with grass runways or whatever aren't going to have buildings probably. What we're going to do is just pull up here. Okay, we're just going to go to the circle view again. Then hopefully what I can do is spin around and see if I can see anything at this airfield, but I don't think there's anything, to be honest. There's a building over there. I'm sure that's really a terminal building, but yeah, it doesn't look like there's a vast amount of detail in Stansted Airport. There certainly is with Gatwick, Heathrow and a lot of those, and you can download versions of the airfields that will look a lot better, certainly. And a lot of them are free, so it's hardly the end of the world, I guess. You can see the flaps are still down. The flaps actually work on the aircraft. So if I just go back in, put the flaps up, you wouldn't need them down now anyway. And if I go back to the circle view, then you should be able to see that the flaps are indeed back to where they should be. So, yeah, I think it's pretty realistic. I like X-Plane as a simulator. I just think we have to be honest and say, you know, there are some things that can be improved, but I think that's always going to be the case. But if you like the look of it and you want to try out the demo, then go for it. If there's anything you need from me, by all means put a comment in the video and I'll do my best to answer any questions, and do let me know if you have any ideas of any other flights you would like to see, any aircraft, that sort of thing, and we can have a look and see what we can do. Okay guys, take care, bye now.